Hey everyone, Corey O'Connor here from Do Control. Excited today to present our latest webinar on defending against supply chain attacks. So let's go ahead, I'll share my screen and we'll get started here. All right, so let's quickly cover the agenda. First, we're going to cover the anatomy of supply chain attacks. We'll highlight SaaS supply chain risks. We'll then pivot to cover some of the more notable breaches that have taken place over the last year. We'll do a quick introduction on Do Control and our approach to securing SaaS supply chain. We'll do a super high level solution demonstration, and then I will leave you with some additional resources if you're interested in learning more about Do Control's approach. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's quickly review the anatomy of supply chain attacks. The first phase is infiltration. Attackers are going to gain access to the software supply chain by exploiting vulnerabilities in the target system or application. They can achieve this through a variety of different techniques, tactics, and procedures, such as phishing, spear phishing, social engineering, credential compromise, or exploiting some other software vulnerabilities. Step two, or phase two, once the attacker has infiltrated the software supply chain, the next step typically involves implanting malicious code into the software or system. They can achieve this by modifying the source code, injecting malicious code into libraries or dependencies, or leveraging a backdoor to gain unauthorized access to the system or application. Step number three is propagation. In this phase, attackers are going to spread that malicious code to other systems or applications through the use of different propagation techniques. The goal here is to maximize the blast radius and infect as many systems or applications as possible. Phase four, step four, activation. Once that malicious code has been successfully deployed and propagated, the attacker can then trigger the attack by activating the code or payload. And this is typically achieved through a timer, some external trigger, or a specific event. And then the last phase is exploitation. So in the final phase here, the attacker is taking advantage of those vulnerabilities in the system or application to achieve whatever objective they're trying to achieve, whether it's exfiltrating sensitive data, causing disruption to a service or system functionality. Software supply chain attacks are difficult to detect and mitigate, partly due to the techniques that are often leveraged in a standard attack. And there's a number of different techniques. Some are super basic, others are more sophisticated and advanced, that will provide whatever those desired outcomes are, whether they're trying to steal data or disrupt the business. And typically there's a number of techniques involved in a standard attack. These supply chain based attacks are definitely on the rise, and attackers are starting to shift their focus and attention to SaaS. So let's talk about SaaS supply chain risks. So when we talk about SaaS supply chain risks, I think we should expand our perspective on what is a supply chain attack. And within SaaS, there's a main threat vector that involves machine identity access and the associated credentials with what we call shadow applications. These applications are essentially a form of shadow IT, and they're not authorized or unsanctioned by the IT department. So shadow apps have the potential to contain vulnerabilities or backdoors that can definitely be exploited and provide unauthorized access to sensitive information and data. And one proven technique is to compromise the credentials and privileges that are involved in application to application or SaaS to SaaS interconnectivity. So many third-party apps require elevated system privileges to operate effectively. And even if the application can operate with reduced privileges, oftentimes they'll default to asking for more privileges than they actually require. And unfortunately, organizations make the mistake of accepting these third-party software defaults without really digging into it. And this, unfortunately, allows for additional accessibility vectors to be introduced in the environment. And let's talk about open authorization or OAuth tokens. These tokens are an open standard that allows users to access systems and to different applications to access each other. And OAuth will access these OAuth tokens will enable a third-party application to interact with resources containing user data in the ways requested by the application without actually requiring the user's credentials. And attackers will take these OAuth tokens and gain access to sensitive data and perform actions within the permissions of these compromised targets, which can then lead to privilege escalation and further compromise the environment. And when we look at over the last year, some of the more notable breaches, back in March of 2022, Samsung fell victim to the Lapsus hacking group. And unfortunately, a lot of Samsung's confidential source code had been obtained and leaked. GitGuardian had uncovered almost 7,000 secrets in the leaked source code. And also about 600 authentication tokens had been exposed in that source code as well. So again, you can see attackers here are looking for those credentials within Samsung to use them as a leverage point. In April of 2022, GitHub was breached. An attacker had abused stolen OAuth tokens to download data from dozens of GitHub's customers. The applications that were maintained were actually from a service provider. And when GitHub analyzed the breach, they suggested that the attackers had mined the downloaded private repo. This is GitHub's own NPM and the contents within them. And the attacker scanned the source code within those private repositories to which the stolen OAuth tokens had access. And they were looking for other secrets to use to pivot into other infrastructure. And then later on, Toyota. So Toyota publicly disclosed a data leakage after access keys were exposed, and they actually issued a warning to their customers of potential personal information exposure. And some of their source code was inadvertently published on GitHub and contained an access key to the data server that stored customer email addresses and some of their internal management team, phone numbers and personal information. Third-party development subcontractor was actually behind this issue. They made a big mistake in allowing that public key to be exposed for almost 5 years. Falling victim to a supply chain attack for Toyota is really the definition of irony, given they're an auto manufacturer and they rely heavily on the use of supply chains for their own product set. So some household names there, some big breaches, all consistent in terms of attackers looking for those credentials and OAuth tokens as part of their attack chain. Quick intro on Do Control. This is our mission statement. So Do Control protects your data in SaaS applications. We are a SaaS security platform or SSP provider. We're a unified, automated, and risk-aware platform that is focused on securing business-critical SaaS applications, driving operational efficiencies, and enabling business productivity. Our core competency is focused on protecting those business-critical apps and data through the use of automated remediation or security workflows, which is what we call them here at Do Control. The platform is built on 3 foundational tenets, which are discovery and visibility, monitor and control, and again, automated remediation. And these core tenets certainly apply to the Shadow Apps governance module, which you can see has been highlighted on the slide here. We expose the unsanctioned and sanctioned applications within the environment. IT and security teams can then review and take control, and then establish security workflows that will provide automated remediation. So let's chat a bit more about that in detail. So Do Control's approach, let's cover this at a high level. Organizations have a combination of different business critical applications. Hundreds to thousands of apps need to be managed and monitored. And what we're going to do is onboard those applications into the platform to provide that visibility into your SaaS application estate. And specifically to SaaS application governance, We expose the usage of the application, the risk that is imposed by that application, the company data that is potentially at risk, the users that have installed the application, the departments that are using the application, and provide that full business context of what's actually taking place within the environment. So we provide that comprehensive inventory of not only these applications, but individual users, both internal to the business, external third-party contractors, all the SaaS events, all the assets, the groups, the domains, the IPs, kind of exposing what your SaaS estate looks like so you can then understand what your risk is based on the business context that we extract. Risk scoring. So we provide an intuitive exposure rating. So we're basically taking a combination of different risk factors into our risk scoring model, and that will enable security and IT teams to accelerate the handling and decision-making of these sanctioned and unsanctioned applications. Next is classification. Are these approved applications? Are they banned? Are they safe to use? Are they on a unapproved application list? So enabling teams to understand, what types of applications are allowed, which ones are violating organizational policy. Application reviews. So this is a way to engage with end users so we can understand from a security perspective, is this an application that is necessary for that user to perform their job function? If it is necessary, how risky is it? So you can, through, for example, a Slack webhook, we can engage with the business user to provide a business justification on the application in which they're looking to install. So again, security should not hinder the business. You need to enable the business. You need to ensure that your SaaS adoption and utilization at scale is driving the business, but being done so in a secure way. And the manual and automated remediation is certainly one way to do that as well. So you can do surgical, single click, or bulk remediation. We have those security workflows that provide a scalable way to reduce the risk of SaaS data overexposure, reduce the risk of applications being installed that present risk to the business. And it's done in a scalable way that's fully automated. So your IT and security teams can focus on, projects and tasks that are presenting serious risk to the business. So at a high level, this is our approach to SaaS governance or SaaS application governance. Let's do a quick solution demo on our module. So let's go ahead. Here, we're going to log into the Do Control console. But before we go to the workflows, let's just take a quick peek at the inventory. So here we're going to go to the shadow application section within the inventory. Here we can see all the different applications that have been installed within the environment. We can see the application that it's being integrated with. So in this example, Intercom integrated with Google Drive. You can see the usage. You can see the type of application. You can see when it was used. You can see the classification. You can see the risk scoring. Here we can filter by risk. So you can look at the applications that are more risky to the organization and review all the specific details of each of these applications. So this is, again, that comprehensive inventory that exposes the applications, giving you the business context to understand, what's taking place and what actions need to be taken. Let's hover over to the workflows. So we want to look at a workflow around OAuth application remediation in Microsoft. So we've pre-established a workflow here. Do Control is an event-driven platform. So the example here, the event is when an application is installed in Microsoft. So here we want to establish a condition, right? Is this a standard business user? Is this an administrative user? If they're an admin, is this an application that's being installed across the organization, or is it being installed by them as an individual user? So what we want to do is create some accountability. If it's organization-wide, we can create a ticket in Jira. We can notify the SecOps team of that event And if it's for personal use, of course, we can notify that individual actor. On the flip side, we have a standard business user. We want to check to see if that application is on the approved application list. If it's approved, okay, we can allow that installation, and then we're going to notify that user through an email. And you can see the preview here. Hello, so-and-so. We're approving this application for Microsoft O365. It aligns to our company policy. You can use it going forward. Thank you very much. On the flip side, if it's in violation of a policy, if this is an application that is overly permissive, if it's not approved by a marketplace, if it's just in general too risky for the business to install, we're automatically going to revoke that access token, and we're going to notify the SecOps team, and we're going to notify the individual user that in fact this application violates organizational policy. We have removed the application. You know, if you want to open up a ticket with IT, we can chat further. But it's that simple. Configuring a workflow is super easy. It's not time consuming. Again, there's an observable shortage of IT and security professionals in the market. So Do Control recognizes that pain that security teams are facing, both CISOs and security practitioners. There's horrible attrition rates. There's a lack of resources. So we want to make our tool and our solutions as easy and as scalable as possible. And our platform is, again, event-driven. You can create extremely granular access control policies and security workflows based on hundreds of different types of events across all of your different business critical applications, giving you that centralized security controls across all of these disparate applications and complicated environments. So yeah, super easy. You configure the workflow. You're going to activate that workflow and save it, and it's that simple. So let's pivot back over to the slides, and we'll touch on a couple of some next steps. So if you're interested in learning more, we launched a module, Shadow Application Governance, not too long ago. So if you visit our website, go to the solutions page and hover over to the Shadow App Governance. I took a screenshot of it, which you can see in the slide. There's lots of great content there, demo videos, other webinars, a solution brief, white papers that cover Do Control's Shadow Application solution. So if you want to learn a bit more, visit our site. You can, of course, request a demo. Another resource that is now available is a risk exposure assessment. So you can calculate your own SaaS risk exposure. This is driven by customer data. It's based on organizational size and the applications that you're using. And it's not just our customer data, but it's also, industry data that we've pulled and built into our calculation. So it's not only helping you understand what your risk is, it's also giving you the ROI that Do Control provides, not only from a financial perspective, but the hours saved in manual remediation and the time freed up for your IT and security teams to, again, focus on other mission critical tasks. That's it. Appreciate everyone taking their time to listen to this webinar. Hopefully you found it interesting. As I mentioned, be sure to visit our website to learn more about Do Control, and be sure to check out the next webinar. Thank you very much.